You know, when you look at our planet from miles up, it all seems pretty familiar. But hidden right there in plain sight on those satellite maps are some of the wildest stories and secrets you could ever imagine. Today, we're diving deep into 10 of the most bizarre, incredible, and sometimes tragic discoveries, all found thanks to the eye in the sky, Google Earth.
I mean, think about it. We have the entire planet right at our fingertips. So what kind of strange sights and untold stories are just sitting there, waiting for someone to find them? Well, let's find out.
We're going to see how a pile of old junk can be used to outsmart some of the most advanced weapons on Earth.
We're also going to visit a place whose name tells you everything you need to know about the heartbreaking story of what happened there.
And you'll witness the unbelievable power of nature to just completely rewrite the map in what feels like the blink of an eye. So, let's start where the Earth itself is changing the story.
All right, so our first stop is all about the raw power of our planet. We're looking at these moments where nature just completely upends the landscape, and in doing so reveals secrets that were buried or hidden from us for years.
We're kicking things off on the famous island of Iwo Jima. For years, if you looked at the satellite images, you'd see these weird dark shapes just off the coast. You know, were they rocks? Maybe some kind of reef? Nobody really knew for sure.
But check this out. Look at the island today. Those shapes that were underwater, they're now sitting high and dry on the beach. Turns out they're the wrecks of US Navy ships from 1945. So while sea levels are rising in other parts of the world, volcanic activity is literally pushing Iwo Jima up out of the ocean, exposing this piece of history that was lost beneath the waves.
Okay, now let's jump over to the Atlantic, to the Spanish island of La Palma. Back in the summer of 2021, this was just a beautiful, thriving community, people living their lives totally unaware of the absolute catastrophe that was about to hit them.
The speed of what happened here is just horrifying. On August 17th, it's a perfectly normal town. Just 2 days later, a volcano erupts, and within days, lava and a thick blanket of ash completely wipe it off the map. A whole modern community just gone.
From creation by volcano to a revelation by drought. So in 2022, California was hit with this severe drought, and the water level in Lake Oroville dropped a lot. And as the water receded, a secret came to the surface from 65 feet down, an SUV hidden for years that had likely crashed right off a nearby highway. A whole story just submerged for decades, finally seeing the light of day.
All right, let's move on. These satellite images, they don't just show us landscapes. They capture the echoes of human stories, freezing these incredible moments of survival and, well, deep disappointment right there in time. Here we are, deep in the middle of nowhere in the Siberian forests. And from way up here, you can see this stark, unnatural line just carved through the trees. It's a scar on the land. And if you follow it to the end, you find the wreckage of an airplane.
But this picture, it's not what it looks like. At first glance, you think tragedy, right? Well, get this. On June 2nd, 2022, this plane ran out of fuel. The pilot had no choice but to try and land it in the middle of the forest. What you're looking at isn't just a crash site, it's the scene of an absolute miracle. Every single person on that plane survived. That scar isn't a tombstone, it's a testament to unbelievable skill and a whole lot of luck.
Now for a totally different kind of story, one that's hidden in an island's name. Way down south of New Zealand, there's a place literally called Disappointment Island. So why the terrible name? Well, back in the 19th century, whalers on these long, brutal voyages would spot it and think, finally, supplies. They'd hope for fresh water, for food, but after sailing for days to get there, all they found was barren rock and harsh winds. Nothing, just disappointment. Okay, this is where things start to get really weird. In this section, we're looking at marks and shapes on the Earth that are just so strange, they make you stop and ask, what in the world created that? So let's start in the middle of the Arabian Desert in Saudi Arabia. You've got miles and miles of nothing but sand, and then, boom, this. A near-perfect square, 400 meters on each side. Is it some kind of ancient ruin, a weird natural formation? What is it doing out here? Well, the satellite history gives us the clues. First off, it wasn't there before 2007, and later images showed temporary camps inside. The best theory we have, it was an oil exploration team. They dug a trench around their camp, not to keep people out, but to keep all the poisonous snakes and creepy crawlies of the desert out. Pretty smart, right? Okay, now we're heading over to a remote part of China for our real mind bender. At first glance, it looks like two massive boulders, each one the size of a football field, and they're casting these long, dark shadows. But if you look closely at the shadows from everything else in the picture, you realize, wait a second, the sun's over there. Something is very, very wrong here.
Because it's a brilliant optical illusion. Those aren't boulders at all, they're giant sinkholes. And the shadows? They're just painted on the ground to fool anyone looking from above. Now, they were dug pretty recently, but why someone would go to all this trouble to create such an elaborate fake-out, that is still a complete mystery.
Okay, for our final section, we're looking at some seriously clever modern-day ingenuity. These are examples of people deliberately and cleverly changing the world around them, sometimes to survive, and sometimes for the high-stakes game of war.
Just look at this coastline in Somalia. See all those thousands of colorful circles? It's not natural. These are wells, dug by the locals for two incredibly smart reasons. First, they act as a barrier to stop salt water from ruining the fresh groundwater they need. And second, they double as evaporation ponds to harvest valuable salt to sell. It's just brilliant, sustainable engineering.
And our final mystery takes us to a Ukrainian airbase in 2023. Here's a massive strategic bomber sitting on the tarmac. Now, here's the same plane completely covered in old car tires. Yeah, you heard that right, car tires. This isn't some weird modern art project. It's a surprisingly clever tactic of modern war. It's honestly a genius example of low-tech beating high-tech. It's a form of optical camouflage. The rubber tires mess with the plane's heat signature and its visual shape, and that totally confuses the automated targeting systems on enemy drones and cruise missiles. It's a cheap, simple defense against some of the most advanced weapons out there. So, from a miraculous survival in Siberia to a volcanic tomb in Spain, every single one of these stories was found by a regular person just exploring the globe from their computer. It really makes you wonder, what other secrets are still out there, just waiting to be found? The only real question is, what will you discover?